歡迎各位收睇2020 BC 省選特輯，我係你哋呢集嘅節目主持梁英年。咁經過咗1年幾集同大家介紹2個主要政黨嘅候選人之後咧，咁呢一集咧就本來就預咗約2位嘅黨領嘅，就係 BC 新民主黨同埋咧係自由黨嘅黨領上嚟同大家係傾下偈嘅。咁但係咧就新民主黨嘅黨領賀錦咧就未有應約咧係上到嚟同大家傾偈嘅。咁所以今日咧我就係會同自由黨嘅黨領 Wilkinson 咧係傾偈，但係因為佢喺全省嗰度拉票咧就嚟唔到我哋嘅直播室㗎，所以我哋唯有透過咧係視像同佢咧嚟到去對談嘅。Both you and the NDP promised more and more money and more public service for the voters, but we all know the provincial treasury is in big trouble due to the pandemic. How can you tell our voters you can outspend John Horgan and you can still keep our treasury and our financial in good order?
Well, during the COVID pandemic, we've seen a lot of government spending. In the US, it was about $28,000 Canadian per person. Canada has spent about $11,000 per person by midsummer. And we say that the structure we're talking about is about $2,000 per person. That's a very prudent investment because we have to get through this pandemic. I was in Richmond today at Parker Place Mall. It's been very quiet there. So they're wanting people to be encouraged to come out and go shopping and to be active. So when we want to talk about getting rid of the sales tax, all the merchants say that'd be great because it puts everything on sale and gets people out and they invest in themselves in the future. That's what we need to do, and that's why we need to spend this money now.
You say you're going to take away the PST the first year and keep the PST at 3% the next year. There are some saying that you're going to reduce the revenue for the government, maybe close to $8 billion. How can you circle it? On one side, you're reducing government revenue, but on the other hand, you are not reducing any public service. How can you balance your numbers?
Government can borrow money very, very cheaply now. And if we're not going to invest in British Columbians, we won't succeed. So we've said it's time to invest in infrastructure like the Massey Tunnel Bridge replacement. It's time to invest in people with daycare. It's time to get people back to work and back involved because we've had huge amounts of unemployment this year that's quite well hidden because of the federal programs. When the federal programs stop, we've got a big problem. And the way to address that is to get the economy going again. Government can borrow very cheaply. We need to do that right now.
The other guy said they have no new tax in their platform, but can you tell our audience you are not going to cut any government service or you are not going to bring back the bridge toll or the MSP premium?
No MSP premiums, no bridge tolls, no cuts in services. We have a lot of problems in our society right now, and this is a time to help people, not to cut off their supplies. So, every day I go for a walk or on my bike and go through a park near my house, and there are 2 or 3 old motorhomes with people sleeping in them. They've run out of money. There are a lot of those people in our society now, and they need a hand now. They don't need to be told they're being cut off. So we have to invest in British Columbians. We have to reduce our taxes, get people more active in the economy, give people a chance to get ahead. That's our plan.
Now, it doesn't matter if it's in the last election or in this election, one of the most concern of our voter, particularly in the Chinese community, is the law and order. When they go out to the street, they see the unorderly. They can see the drug infestation in some area. And the homelessness problem is now spreading to other parts of Vancouver, particularly the Strathcona Park issue. Now, you are from Vancouver, and you witnessed the changes in Vancouver in the last decades. How will a Liberal government do differently this time on this drug gang homelessness problem?
We have a huge problem in our society right now with people living in tents. The NDP say that's okay. They want to have permanent tent cities. We have a huge problem with homelessness. We have a huge problem with drug addiction. And we have a big problem with street disorder. And this is all over the province. It's in Hope, it's in Quesnel, it's in Richmond. Everywhere you go, there are people complaining that things just aren't safe anymore. So we've said it's time to deal with this head on. We want to get the mental health problems out of the hands of the police. You do that by arranging for nurses and social workers to work with the police, out in the police cars, to take the mental health issues to the hospital, not to the criminal justice system. And we've said it's time to hire 200 more police officers to address the law and order problems because the NDP left 200 vacancies in BC. That's not good enough. We need to make sure our streets are safe for everybody. And the NDP's approach to homelessness, one of their ministers described it perfectly. She said, you can't just scoop people out of a park, dump them in an old motel and hope to succeed. That's going to fail. She's right. They've failed. It doesn't work. So we say you have to treat the causes. If someone is mentally ill, you treat their mental illness. If someone has a brain injury, you treat that. If someone's addicted to drugs because of traumas in their life, you treat that separately. You don't just bundle everybody up and put them in a rundown old motel, and then they spill onto the street, and there's all this disorder on the street. This has been a total failure on the part of the NDP. It's going to require policing, it's going to require social workers and psychiatric nursing, and it's going to require treating the causes of homelessness, not just bundling them into a hotel or letting them live in tent camps.
Now, because you are from Vancouver, I ask you these questions as a Vancouver taxpayer. It looks like the Vancouver City Council, particularly the mayor, is spending a lot of money from the Vancouver taxpayer to buy hotel to deal with the homelessness problem. It shouldn't be the issue for Vancouver only. Should this be a provincial issue? Should the province help the Vancouver taxpayer instead of putting the burden on Vancouver taxpayer only? It should be the province that's going to help them.
I think what the city of Vancouver is struggling with is the province set it up in Vancouver, Nanaimo, and Victoria, and it failed every time because all they did was take an old rundown motel, put people inside and say, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't work. So the city of Vancouver will hopefully do it better and hopefully manage these facilities and hopefully have some health care provided so that people can get their lives in order. Because simply moving them from a tent out in the rain into a rundown old motel out of the rain actually doesn't accomplish anything at all. That's all the NDP have done.
But what will the Liberal government do for them?
Well, we've got to provide the right kind of housing with the right kind of services. It's been done in the past, it can be done again. Because you can't just say, oh, live the life that you want, and if you're mentally ill, that's too bad. You've got to provide the health care they need. You've got to do what you can to get them off drugs. You've got to treat them like human beings and make some progress. Simply putting people in a bundle and putting them into an old hotel accomplishes nothing. It just causes policing problems.
Now, I ask you this question as a taxpayer as well, is regarding ICBC. You're proposing a new way to do business for the car owners to buy insurance. But there's a lot of study that already proven the public insurance system will serve the public good. But how will the competition by the private business going to help British Columbian car owners and to have cheaper insurance and better service?
Well, you have to look at BC's model. It's been around now for 47 years. Nobody else anywhere in the world uses this model, and it doesn't work anymore. So why don't we look around the world and see what does work? Saskatchewan has a good system, which is what we're talking about, allowing private competition so that you can go and get more than one quote. If you want a certain kind of coverage, then you pay for it. If you don't want that, you pay for something else. ICBC will still be there with the no-fault insurance. But they do this in Quebec, they do it in New Brunswick, they do it in Saskatchewan. There's no reason why we can't try new systems here. Because you have to ask the question, what is ICBC so afraid of? Why not have a choice? Why not let people choose what they want? And especially true for business insurance, for trucks and for taxis and those kinds of things. Why can't they pick the kind of insurance they want, rather than be told you have to go to the ICBC monopoly? And don't forget, for new drivers, for people newly arrived in Canada, for young people, their premiums at ICBC have gone way up. $5,000, $7,000 a year is becoming normal. You can't afford to do that. That's not auto insurance. That's just feeding the ICBC monopoly with your money. So we say, what is the problem with having a choice? Why not let people choose the coverage they want from multiple sources?
Now, how about the criticism that the private insurance company will scoop up all the good drivers and leave those bad drivers for ICBC, and ICBC can never compete with the private insurance companies because ICBC is government-run?
Well, those people forget that every insurance market in the world is regulated except British Columbia. The state-run monopoly meant you had no choice, so it didn't need to be regulated. It was all just handed to ICBC to tell you what to do and how to live and how to drive. That's not good enough. We need to have a regulated insurance market for things like young people and new drivers. So they would get 2 years credit on their driving record, or 4 years if they take driver education, so they don't face these astronomically high premiums. It can be done, it's done in many other places, and all these people who say it's all so terrible, Why are they so much in love with ICBC? Why can't ICBC compete with a choice? Everybody's entitled to a choice. We have more than one kind of cereal at the supermarket. We have more than one kind of thing to choose from at the paint store. What if you went to the paint store and they're told this is the only kind of paint, it's made by the government and you will like it or you don't get any paint? That's not good enough.
Now, you are promising a $10 a day daycare. The NDP has been promising a $10 a day daycare for a long time, since last election, but we haven't seen those $10 a day daycare. So what is your plan different from those NDP plan that has been announced years ago?
We have a long record of actually getting things done. The NDP talk a lot. You'll remember they talked about 114,000 housing units they're going to build. They've built 2,963, and they're all temporary, nothing permanent. They said they're going to have $10 a day daycare for everybody. They gave it to nobody. They said it was just a slogan. And so now 2,000 people in BC have $10 a day daycare under a federal pilot program. It has nothing to do with the NDP. So it's one broken promise after another. Renters rebate, childcare, affordable housing, construction of housing units, all of them fall into nothing. There's a long record of the NDP, and it's best demonstrated by their record on hospital construction. They've been in office for 13 of the last 30 years. The number of hospitals they actually got built, 0. We had 16 years in office. We built 14 hospitals. We're proud that we actually get things done. So we say, in this pandemic, the people who've been hit the hardest are women with low-income jobs in small companies. They need the $10 a day daycare to get back in the workplace, and that's what we will provide.
Now, how about those people that have small kids at home, babies at home, but they don't want to take their kids to daycare, but they want to do it themselves at home? You're putting a lot of revenue into providing this $10 a day daycare. Is there anything that you can help those stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad to look after the kid with some help from the government?
Well, the idea is for people to go out and get in the workforce. What happened in Quebec was when they introduced their cheaper daycare, the income of people rose quite significantly because more people went out to get a job. That's the whole goal, is to allow people to go to work when otherwise they couldn't because they'd have to be providing childcare. That's the goal, and that's what we will do.
Several of your Liberal candidates have been accused of intolerance toward LGBTQ2S community, in particularly the opposition to have rainbow-colored crosswalk and the conversion therapy. Now, another of your candidates has been criticized as sexism toward young professional women, and you have been criticized as a weak leader because you did not deal with this issue sooner or strong enough. Even senior party workers in your own party openly voiced displeasure of your leadership. So what is your leadership style, and how do you recognize the difference of opinion in your own party?
Well, all of these problems are dealt with very quickly. When I phoned the man in Chilliwack about his views on birth control, the goal was to have him end his role as a candidate, and within 30 seconds it was over. I'm very decisive about these things. I said about the thing about the woman candidate in North Vancouver that it was a disappointment and it shouldn't have happened. Look at what Jordan Horgan has done. He had a very highly qualified Indigenous woman as a potential candidate in the northern riding of Stikine. What happened? Well, they have an equity policy. The old one was an old white man. The new one had to be someone who wasn't a white man. They ignored their own policy. They broke their own rules. And who did they appoint? They didn't have a contest. John Horgan appointed his friend, who happens to be an old white man. So that John Horgan was asked about this. Did he apologize? No, he refused to apologize. When that same man made a racist remark about one of our candidates, did John Horgan apologize? No, he just brushed it off and said, oh, poor, you should feel sorry for the man who made the insult. I mean, that's not leadership, that's weakness, because he's refusing to enforce his own policies, he's picking his favorite friends to be candidates, and he's allowing them to make racist remarks. That's not acceptable.
In general, what will you say about the systematic discrimination, not just on sexual orientation or sexism, but on religious faith, on ethnic background? So what is your opinion in general on all those discrimination or even a systematic discrimination?
There is no room in British Columbia for any kind of discrimination based on age, gender, sexual orientation, place of origin, income. No discrimination should be allowed at all. That's my view, that's our party's view, that's something that's required of all of our candidates. But we still have a lot of work to do on these kinds of things, because I think you know perfectly well, there's still discrimination in this society. We have to work hard to make sure it doesn't happen. That's why in our platform, we put in 6 different statements about anti-racism training in the provincial government, about making sure there's equity for everybody, that everybody has a fair chance to get ahead, because our party is totally committed to equality, fairness, and opportunity for everybody. The NDP, unfortunately, sent out a list of friends and enemies, people they want to win, people they want to lose. That's not the way to govern a province. You can't pick good people and bad people. That's just so totally inappropriate in a democracy. So we are committed to making sure everybody feels respected, everybody's involved, and everybody has a chance to get ahead, right here in BC.
I have to ask you this last question. It's the most recent poll that you are still the underdog. NDP is still leading in the poll. So what will you say to those voters that are still not decided? How should they vote in this pandemic election? And why they should still consider the Liberal? Should they just stay at home if they don't agree with the NDP?
Well, you have to keep in mind that John Horgan called this election out of pure selfish ambition. There's no reason to have this election except for John Horgan's pride and his goal to be an important person. So why would you accept that as a purpose for an election? So how do we move through this pandemic? We're going to need a bold economic plan to bring us back to success, and that's what we offer. We are the only party talking about help for the tourism sector. We're the only party talking about a real daycare plan. We're the only party talking about cutting your taxes, and that's the way we can rebuild BC and get ahead. It's very important for you to vote. Don't feel like you can be discarded by the NDP or toyed with or manipulated. It's your rights that are being in question here, and it's important to go out and vote, and we urge you to vote for the BC Liberals so that we can all work toward an equal, fair, and prosperous BC for everybody.
So thank you, Mr. Wilkinson, and all the best.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
大家咧就聽完自由黨嘅黨領 Andrew Wilkinson 咧，同大家介紹自由黨嘅政綱，同埋佢喺今次省選裏邊嘅一啲嘅睇法，同埋一啲發生咗嘅事情，佢嘅回應，無論係好唔好咧，佢都同大家係解釋咗啦。咁啊，差唔多日子㗎咯喎，聽日咧就係24號，就係大家咧最後投票嘅日子啦。如果你係攞咗嗰個嘅郵寄投票嘅話，而你又填好咗就未寄咧，你千祈唔好寄啊，因為實收唔到，你唯有咧就係拎去投票嗰個嘅地方投票站，或者咧係選舉辦事處咧將你嗰個郵寄嘅選票咧等落去嗰個信箱。如果唔係嘅話咧，你咪直情去嗰個投票站嗰度投票就更加係快捷妥當。嗱，我自己嘅經驗咧就係因為喺個疫情當中咧，選舉局已經用盡各樣嘅方法咧去確保大家係有一個安全嘅投票嘅。我自己投票嗰個經驗咧就係因為我喺預先投票嗰7日已經去咗投票啦，我見到佢哋嗰個嘅準備咧係非常之充足。大家咧應該係可以信心係有一個乾淨健康嘅投票嘅，大家就唔好錯過呢個機會。不過今次嘅投票亦都係特別嘅，因為咧係已經有近100萬嘅選民咧投咗票，無論係喺7日嘅預先投票或者係郵寄選票咧，已經係作出咗佢哋嘅決定啦。咁但係因為嗰啲郵寄選票咧係要喺投票結束之後，然之後打開嗰個信封，分翻開唔同嘅選區、唔同嘅地方嚟到去數個選票，好可能咧聽晚黑唔係好似以往嘅投票咁，可以即時咧知道個結果，可能咧要等多1-2個星期，當所有嘅選票咧數完之後咧，先至知道嗰個結果㗎啦。所以省政府究竟下一次係由邊一個黨嚟執政咧，而家咧係唔知道㗎。唯有咧係繼續去等啦。咁但係因為今次係一個疫情嘅投票咧，所以嗰個省政府停止運作嘅時間啊，可能咧係比一般定咗選舉嘅時間係長一啲嘅。大家俾啲耐性，最終咧都有一個結果嘅。咁啊，多謝大家收睇2020 BC 省選特輯。